Joined now by John Shannon, the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, who's talking code this week.
Oh,
John.
I am
Do you
not
have a
talking
copy?
code.
Do you have a copy of the code? Do you have the original
exactly.
code?
Can you send me your version?
Yeah.
So I'll treat the code that I have. It's in a leather-bound book. It was done in 1966. It was given to me by Frank Selke Jr. when I joined Hockey Night in Canada. So
I want maybe this thing exists. It's like the holy grail for hockey.
Oh.
Where is the original book of code?
The code exists. Whatever's convenient, boys.
Yeah.
Whatever is convenient. Let's face it. I mean, gosh, I don't even. And there was a point, I must. Maybe I'm just getting soft in my old age. I used to try to defend it and think that it was, there was a right way and a wrong way. It blows in the wind. It blows in the wind, and just we get to the point in these situations that what we saw on Saturday night in Ottawa was a little tantamount to what we see every Monday night on Raw.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and so let's enjoy it. Let's get the rivalry going. Let's get people heated. Let's have some fun. Come on.
Like Brad Marchand air pumping the Stanley Cup over his head in Vancouver a few years down the road, like a complete dick move. But chef's kiss. Like it was perfect.
But if you're a Bruin fan, it was great.
I think it's great, period. Like if you're a Canuck fan, you'd be like, oh man, what an idiot. But he can do that because he did it. Like it's just like you have to have some characters, don't you?
Absolutely. Now, as I said to some people in the league office yesterday when they were talking about Ridley Greig, I said I didn't mind the slap shot. I've never played, so I didn't mind the slap shot. The net didn't get hurt. Nothing was, and this was him saying, we finally beat the Maple Leafs again, and aren't we having some fun for the 6,500 Senators fans that were in the 19,000 seat arena because they had sold everybody else had sold their tickets to Leaf fans.
Yeah.
So I have no issue with what Ridley Greig did. And then Morgan Rielly, and I have friends that have said this the last 48 hours. Well, he's such a good guy. No, he screwed up. Yeah. And there are ways to be pissed off when you can walk over to a guy and say you're pissed off. He just, crossed the line, period. And he will pay for it.
Yeah.
No, same thing. We know Morgan here. His dad, Andy's a big listener to the show. Love him as a guy, love him as a hockey player, but he's going to get suspended and justifiably so.
I'll be honest, and sorry to interrupt, Matt, but I had more issue, and I had more issue earlier in the day with Jake Wallman doing the goodie. Than I did Ridley Greig doing the slap shot. I had more issue with it. I was checking who was on the ice or close to the ice, but all the Canucks were on the bench still. So,
what was the issue? Just you don't want to see dancing
too long, too much?
No. My point is that I'm being facetious in just the fact that we want players to show emotion and individuality at times, and this is a great opportunity for Wallman to do it, and yet it is so anti-code that I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, fair enough.
Fair enough. Come on. Do we want personality in the game or not?
But invariably on social media, John, when people are defending Rielly's actions, it's this bro mentality of this is a tough man's game and he can't show people up. He's gonna feel the sword. If you're so tough, why does the empty net slapper offend you so much? Or the dance. If you're that tough, why is that offensive to you? You seem very paper thin, actually, not very tough.
I tell you, if I'm a Maple Leaf fan, I'm a little more concerned about what this team does without him.
Right.
That's the bigger story. And I think that was part of Saturday night, because I think the frustration wasn't the Greig slap shot as much as it was, oh man, we got our dinner delivered to us by a team that's 29th in the National Hockey League.
Yes.
We have problems, and we're 0-5-1. We've got problems. And they're going to lose their best defenseman. They've got problems.
And that is often my point in retribution or response via the code, is it often puts you at a competitive disadvantage. We know that in this market from 20 years ago with Todd Bertuzzi, John, which brings me to Nikita Zadorov on Lucas Raymond, which was a bad hit and another justifiable suspension. What do you think? Do you think Detroit's coming in here Thursday, or just does nobody want any part of big Nikita Zadorov?
The only thing I would say is, it's incumbent on Derek Lalonde, and probably more so on Steve Yzerman, to say, boys, we need 2 points. We can't sacrifice this stuff. We can. History's long. We can find some other way and some other time, but the Red Wings need points. And if they're going to sacrifice vengeance for moving up in the standings, then shame on them. Mm-hmm. And I think I think Steve's, if not the smartest, but one of the smartest guys in the game. I think he understands better than anybody else. I really do. And I suspect the way the Red Wings play, that they will play aggressively, but I don't think they'll play stupid.
Sometimes the NHL does take into consideration a rematch that's that proximal, and they make sure that guy is suspended for the rematch. Like, they could have just said 3 games, and then Zadorov's not there, and the chances for revenge isn't there, but they didn't.
I actually don't think they do that very often. I think they try to look for a level of consistency of what the headshots are all about. One of the problems is in the last 3 or 4 weeks, even prior to the break, there have been a lot of headshots, and we've seen a lot of 3-game and 2-game suspensions. And I think that's probably frustrated the league office more than anything else, is saying, guys, aren't you getting the message? Aren't you understanding that, we are going to be really tough on hits to the head somehow, some way? I look at Brendan Dillon in Winnipeg. He got 3 games for the shot on Achari in Pittsburgh. It is. I'm sure it's frustrating, not as much for George Peros, who's trying to do the job, but I'm sure it's frustrating for the commissioner and for Colin Campbell and Bill Daly to say, boys, we've got to be better at this. We've got to be better at controlling our emotions and finding a way how to have a body check without hitting the head.
On to the Vancouver Canucks, John. We're asking here today on our poll question about biggest need for the hockey club. Obviously, you'd like to improve your top 6 or your top 4, but you tell me whether you think they can do that after already giving up the assets for Lindholm, and whether or not you see something like that again, or something like depth moves.
Well, I don't think you can have too many defensemen. And particularly with Carson Soucy out now for a while. Who knows how long. I think that if this team is to go on a long trip through the playoffs, you're going to need 8 or 9 defensemen to be successful. I like their forwards. I think at a certain point, management has to look at this and say, okay, we've made the change we got the guy we wanted, and now we believe in this group. And I think that's a twofold situation. We like this group so much that we went out and got Lindholm to help enhance it. So we believe in all you. Now let's make that work. But I think the depth on the blue line is still very important for any team that thinks it's going to go even to the 3rd round in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So to me, it's a depth defenseman. I don't have an answer for you who that is. Would I love to see Chris Tanev back in Vancouver? Sure, I would. But I'm not sure how practical that is of what they have to give up.
Let me throw a name at both of you. I haven't brought this name out yet. And he used to be perennially named. Kind of linked to the Canucks a little bit, just because the fit. But he used to be named all the time in the last couple of years of his previous contract. How about Matt Dumba in Arizona? He's been getting some mention, but not a ton, and not linked to the Canucks at all. but his value is way down because he's not the 50-point defenseman he once was. He's got 6 points this year, but he's right side. He can play physical. Now, he can sometimes be off the hook a little bit, John, and get you a suspension that takes him out of the quiver. But would that be the kind of playoff fit for a Vancouver Canucks team that isn't notable for being super tough?
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to what you're giving up more, Blake. I mean, from a cap perspective, I think he's at about 4.5. I don't have the numbers.
He's actually cheaper now.
3.9, Sean.
Okay. So when you prorate it from March the 8th, it probably is affordable for the team, but it's in the end, it's what you're giving up. I think that's the other challenge is, we're going for it. Yeah, we're going to do this, but we still have to play next year, and we have to play the year after that, and we have to have some guys on entry-level deals at some point in order to play a season. And I do think if this group with Rutherford and Alvin are here in Vancouver long term, I don't think you can leave the cupboard bare like they left the cupboard bare in Pittsburgh. And so that'll be the push pull. I suspect that Jim will say, "Let's go. We're going to do it. We're going to do it." And Patrick's, who I suspect is going to be in the job longer than Jimmy will be, and I hope I don't get a phone call from Jimmy about that, but that's okay. I'm used to it. You have to look to the future a little bit, and that becomes the real challenge.
Pittsburgh is 7 out now, albeit with games in hand, but with 4 teams to jump. Do you know where the Penguins are leaning on at this moment on Gensel?
No, but I don't know why we'd limit it to just Gensel. I think that's going to be the real debate for Kyle in Pittsburgh is you're not getting rid of Sid. Although my pal McCowan did suggest it last week on the podcast with Eddie Olczyk. So why not think about getting rid of Sid and getting lots in return and rebuild now? I think there would be a riot in the streets in Pittsburgh. I think everybody else should be on the board too, but I'm not sure anybody would take Malkin or Letang. Gensel's got to be at the top of the list, and I don't know where. And again, it becomes what teams can afford. There's been a little bit of rumbling that perhaps Edmonton might be interested in Gensel. I just don't know how they can afford him. I don't know what you have to give up in order to get him. Jake Gensel would be a good get for any team that's prepared to make a long playoff run, but he's not on an entry-level deal now, and he's expensive, and that becomes a real challenge.
Basically the same question on the Kraken. They've lost 3 in a row here. They're exactly 500 at 21, 21, and 10. 6 back again with 4 teams to jump. Where do you think they are in terms of the buying, selling side of the deadline?
Well, I think there's no more pragmatic person in the game than Ron Francis. And he will not mortgage the future for the present. We know that. He's in for the long haul. So I suspect that there will be some movement for the Kraken, but it's not going to be a core guy. The issue with Seattle has been who scores goals. So you're not getting rid of goal scorers. Then you have to look at the blue line and wonder if there's somebody on that blue line that they can give up and get some more potentially young players or draft picks that they can use for the long term.
Lastly, you see those Super Bowl numbers, John?
Wow. But hey, by the way, I was glued. I was glued. I loved it. No, was it the greatest football game? No, it wasn't the greatest football game. It was a pretty good second half. There was never a doubt in my mind that Kansas City would win the game. Never. You give them the ball last, they're going to score. And they did twice at the end of regulation and the end of the first overtime period. But man, oh man, 123 million. It also speaks to, and halftime outrated the game.
Yeah.
Halftime. I mean, it's a tried and true recipe. Get a good star, get a big star, and put him on that stage, and you will outdraw the game. And that's what Usher did. By the way, I know it's I guarantee you that Usher did not get a cent for that show.
He doesn't. They no longer pay the halftime act. They get
That's
all the
right.
ancillary benefits of the downloads and everything.
What a shock. I'm driving down the Gardner Expressway this morning, and he's got a new album out, and he's got a tour coming. What a shock.
Yeah, and those will both sell pretty well. Gosh, John, this game rivaled the moon landing for television viewers. It's the first thing to rival the moon landing in 1969.
So here's the problem, Maddie. Mm-hmm. I've watched both of them.
Wisdom, John. It's wisdom. It's not a problem. It's wisdom.
It was John Shannon, everybody. He's one of the
4x3, that 4x3 black and white, and me and Neil Armstrong, just the two of us.
It used to be embedded in a piece of furniture, right? The television was furniture back then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Great stuff, sir. Until next week.
Cheers, boys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.